Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Becoming Chiron, the key to unlocking healing and personal alchemy, with me, your hostess, Ursula Duffy. Today, we are going to talk about our Astro Weather Check to begin, as always, and then I'll get into discussing the 11th house and having Chiron in the 11th house of one's natal chart. I hit the record button about 10:49 a.m. here in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and we are about 24 hours out from our new moon in Taurus, which I will discuss. I want to begin our Astro Weather Check today with a little bit of reflection, personal sharing as well, because that's part of the point of this whole podcast is the lived experience of astrology. And when I recorded the last episode, we were on the eve of the Scorpio Full Moon Lunar Eclipse. And we talked all about that last time. And it was also concurrent Mercury Retrograde. And we are on the other side of all of that now. And with tomorrow's new moon, we close out the eclipse season window for this first eclipse season of 2023. And the Mercury Retrograde is now over, and we have a lot of planetary shifts happening. There's a lot of energy packed into tomorrow's new moon. So I want to take a little bit of time to start with just let's reflect on what's happened in the last 2 weeks. I can tell you that eclipse was so powerful, and the synchronicity of the things that occurred essentially as the eclipse was happening and the full moon was happening was just, it blew my mind. And it wasn't just me personally. I experienced this myself, and a lot of people that I know experienced something very similar. So I just want to take a little bit of time to share that and just the overall energy of the nodes that have been in Taurus and Scorpio now since the end of 2021. North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio. And one of the themes that this astrologer Judith Hill, I believe her name is, relates to the South Node is it being like the great anus of the zodiac. And I think that is such a funny and apt description, because this, coupled with eclipses, especially being in the sign of Scorpio over the last couple of years, has been remarkable. And just to go into that personally just a little bit, the South Node has been going through my 7th house. As I've discussed on this podcast, I'm a Taurus rising. So that means my first house is Taurus, and then opposite on the other side is 7, and the opposite sign is Scorpio. So with the South Node, when I work with it natally, it is the way that I work with it. It relates very much to where we come in on a soul level where our cup is full. All the experiences, knowledge, connections to spirit and ancestry, and all the sometimes past lives also live in the space that we come into this lifetime with. By transit, it's more, and well, natally also, a place of release. Like Judith Hill says, the great anus of the zodiac. So since the end of 2021, as the South Node has been going through my 7th house, and we've covered the 7th house already. Remember, that's the space that relates to intimate relationships, partnerships, friends, but on a more one-to-one level, legal things, and also who we draw in that kind of holds up a mirror to teach us about ourselves. And the release of people, as I saw this transit coming, it was a little bit, I was just like aware of everything that could happen. And just, I don't live by the whole there's fear in astrology and, oh my God, this transit's coming and all that. Like, I always try and take the higher perspective and the higher vibration approach. And being married, that was a little bit, I don't know, whatever happens, happens. That's how I live with it and work with it. So anyway, the release of people that were in my life, definitely to teach me something, but not for the highest good. And people that showed up as friends that had ulterior motives and agendas. The great reveal of all the truth of all of that and the release of those people one by one, sometimes groups of them concurrently, is exceptional, and the way that I've experienced this whole thing. And if there was something else that got kind of energetically released and tied up on the 5th with the full moon and the eclipse. As I've said, eclipses work like this. They actually can eclipse things out. And the time frame of the full moon and the eclipse, a person eclipsed out in like perfect synchronistic divine timing. It was remarkable. I was blown away. And many people I know experienced the same thing. And this whole journey, I mean, our intimate relationships are the challenges. They're some of the more difficult things that we go through in this lifetime. And I'm not going to say the journey's been easy, because it has not. But after that eclipse, the feeling, just the energetic clearing and the wrapping up of all of these things that have been kind of going on since the end of 2021, it just felt so much better on the other side of it. So as the nodes will shift in July, I'm kind of excited for a new energy and for those themes to kind of shift into something else in my own life personally. If you're a Taurus rising, then it might be similar for you. But it's just, we talk about these things, and I, did the Astro Weather Check before the full moon happened, and then just the way that everything played out, in reality, was just remarkable. So I call you to maybe do the same reflection. Things might have seemed very confusing and just baffling to an extent. I mean, that was one of my words for the whole experience. But reflect on it, and reflect on maybe intentions that you had set with the new moon in Scorpio back in the fall, if you did, and what materialized over the last 6 months and what happened, and really with fine attention on how it's serving you, even if the experience was not pleasant. I talk about the 7th house a lot like that, where if we draw somebody in, even if the experience is not the most pleasant, and I talked about this in the very beginning of the podcast when I shared my story about my exit from the corporate world, that experience was not pleasant, but it definitely served me. Especially now that we're on the other side of the Mercury retrograde, and as the eclipse season, like I said, will close out tomorrow with the new moon, it's a time of reflection and integration. So we have a lot of energy in Taurus right now. So the one thing that happened this week, so I was talking about how the planets are starting to shift and kind of like assist us in this integration part of the last month and a half. We had Jupiter change signs on Tuesday. Mercury went direct on Monday. I believe it was Monday. It kind of, depending on where you are in the world, it was Sunday night or Monday. And now we have Jupiter, the North Node, Mercury direct, the planet Uranus, the sun, and the moon in Taurus. So this really calls us to dig deep into the vibrations of Taurus and the different expressions. I will include a link to this in the show notes. We published our May soul broadcast earlier this month, and it was all about calling in love and abundance. And I wrote about Taurus and the material world, because Taurus relates to the material world. But on a higher vibration level, it's more about our sensual experience. Sensual as in things that we can touch, feel, taste, see, but also beyond those physical senses, into our intuition. And just pleasure and slowing down. Taurus moves very slowly. A lot of people call it like the turtle. It's the bull. I mean, bulls don't move very fast usually, unless it's like a bullfight. And that's a kind of interesting characteristic of the energy too. Once it gets moving, it's unstoppable. So part of this stellium, huge stellium that we have, 3 or more planets in one sign, right now in Taurus, I always say when we have a cluster, the lessons are really on the other side. So it's Scorpio again. And we have some things. I'll get into the squares. We're in a mighty square situation again right now, so I'll touch on that in a moment. But now that the Mercury retrograde's over, if anything kind of came up helping you to reanalyze finances, or just maybe even tapping into your higher faculties and senses over the last few weeks during the retrograde, that's something to reflect on. I'm experiencing that personally as well. And it's been a very curious time and very curious synchronicities, especially with Jupiter changing signs. So with Jupiter, a lot of astrologers refer to Jupiter as the Santa Claus of the zodiac. And yes, there are those themes there: abundance, prosperity, expansion, growth on a spiritual level to an extent as well. I'm finding I'm in this Jupiter cycle myself personally. I'm finding Jupiter to be kind of mysterious in the way that Jupiter works, because it's not only about calling in those things externally, it's also about that energy within. So really digging deep into reflection on what those things mean. In my piece that I wrote, I gave like dictionary.com definitions for abundance and prosperity and all those things. And then I kind of asked to reflect on what those words really mean to you, and on a higher vibration level, what can they mean? Like, think big. Jupiter relates to thinking big, expanding, having a higher perspective, belief. So with the Jupiter energy over the last year or so, we've been kind of, it was like a dance between Aries and Pisces. And this time, Jupiter shifted into Taurus on Tuesday and will stay fully in Taurus until May of next year. Jupiter spends roughly a year in each sign, but the last changes have been kind of drifting between two signs. This time it's fully in one the entire time. So it's interesting because, for one, what happened on Tuesday was just remarkable. It was in this kind of, it felt like there was a levee or a dam or just, there were a lot of things going on that sort of were forcing me to reevaluate a lot and just kind of get more creative and think about different ways to do things. And it was like a call to action, and I acted. And on Tuesday, it was like the levee broke, the dam lifted, the floodgates opened. There were like 5 things that came in on Tuesday that were just incredibly remarkable in the synchronicities. And we can experience this when planets change signs, especially the slower moving planets. So with Jupiter, like I said, it's roughly a year in each sign, and that kind of stuff can happen. So if that happened for you, pay attention to that, and pay attention to kind of where you were on the one side of it and now where you are on the other side of it, and how you can work with the energy and keep that momentum moving and building. You can see this a lot with the shifts. The way that I work with it, I work with the tropical zodiac and I work with whole sign houses. So when a planet shifts signs, it also changes houses. And this happened, just a little more reflection, like when Uranus changed signs back in May of 2018, on that day when Uranus shifted from Aries to Taurus, first house for me, I was on my way to a retreat where I was going to give my first astrology reading. And we call Uranus the planet of the father of astrology and all that kind of stuff, because Uranus relates to the sciences and especially the esoteric arts and sciences. So that synchronicity was just incredible. Like all of the moving parts that came to culminate in that moment when the planet changed signs and I was going to give my first reading as my midterm for my apprenticeship. So think about what happened on Tuesday, if anything, and if it was something big or many things that were big. Good time for reflection and a good preview of what this transit is going to be like for the next year for you. On a collective level, it works the same way. So it calls us all to think bigger about the higher expanded perspective of the material world. So for more, I'll link to the blog post and you can read my section about Taurus energy. So that happened. Okay, so Mercury went direct. We're in the integration phase of the retrograde now. Jupiter shifted signs. And then tomorrow we have the new moon at, I believe I'm looking at the chart right now, 11:53 a.m. tomorrow. So new moon in Taurus. Like I said last time, our lunar cycles are a little bit flipped right now. So we already had the full moon in Scorpio. Now we're going to have the new moon in Taurus, and that'll catch up eventually. I'll talk about it when it's coming. So this is interesting because Venus has shifted signs, and Venus is now in the sign of Cancer, and Venus is the ruler of Taurus. So all of these planets that are hanging out in Taurus right now are sort of like answering to Venus. So this is a very sweet energy. I'm finding this to be extremely positive and enjoyable. It's just been like a time of taking a little bit more time to just enjoy the pleasures of life. There's a sweetness to Venus in Cancer. Venus is getting more and more mature now in the cycle, this part of her cycle, growing higher and higher in the evening sky, shining bright and sparkly. And we have a Venus retrograde coming up, which will be starting next month, and I'll talk about that eventually. But all these planets are just kind of answering to this mature, beautiful pleasure energy. So dig into that tomorrow. There is some tension, and I'll talk about that next. But that we talk about squares a lot. Like I said, it's definitely a mighty square energy. So the energy is big, but it calls us to act. It calls us to do something about it if we're feeling stuck. If we're feeling like our river of abundance is under a levee, under a levee or a dam situation, what are you going to do about it? And think big, because we still have Uranus kind of close, and that's the revolutionary, that's the liberator, that's the rebel energy. And the moon is pleasant in the sign of Taurus. It's the sign that the moon said to be, quote unquote, exalted in. So it's a very strong moon as well. So as you're thinking about everything that's happened over the last month and a half, last couple of weeks since the full moon, infuse that into your new moon intentions. If you do any kind of new moon ceremony, I'm definitely going to do one tomorrow. Infuse all of that into the goals and things that you want to see happen and set for the next 6 months. It's a beautiful energy right now. It really is, despite the squares. So the squares that we have right now, which doesn't happen very often, as Jupiter shifted into Taurus, it's square Pluto, which doesn't happen very often. So we also have Mars changing signs on the so hang on one second. So we have the new moon tomorrow. Mars shifts into Leo on Saturday. So Mars has been in Cancer for the last couple months, and now it's going to shift into Leo. Mars has been in Cancer, shifts into Leo. And then the sun will shift on Sunday. So we have a lot of like rapid fire, consecutive day things changing. So as Mars shifts into Leo, we have a mighty square. So we have Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius, fixed sign. We have Jupiter at 0 degrees of Taurus, fixed sign. Mars will shift into Leo, fixed sign. And we have the South Node still sitting at 2 degrees of Scorpio, fixed sign. So this is called a Grand Cross. This is a square, 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 square situation, and with some heavy hitters. So the energy, think about, just again, more reflection. What has been happening over the last few years? We certainly were under a situation where a lot of our personal power was taken away. Pluto relates very much to personal power, and so does Mars. Pluto and Mars are like the two planets that relate very much to those tower moments in our lives. Mars is a personal planet, so that energy is internalized. Pluto is a transpersonal planet. So a lot of that energy comes at us from systems and power structures and all the things that are really starting to, their foundations already been broken and they're crumbling. So we experience that collectively and also personally. So we have the two planets facing off across the zodiac, Mars at 0, Leo, opposite Pluto at 0, Aquarius. And that's an opposition, like I always talk about, as an opportunity for balance. So how does that translate to you personally? And because it's fixed energy, it holds. So it takes a little bit more to get that momentum going. It takes a little bit more to feel that friction so much that you're called to act. And with the South Node, it's release. So we talked about this last time with the energy with the full moon, like really, really getting into release of those emotions and things that you may have buried over the last few years with everything that was happening. It was a lot of tower moments for everybody with every aspect of our lives. So more release, the great anus of the zodiac, let go of that shit. Think about it. When we talk about the fixed signs, think about fixed water. Think about a puddle and what grows, like what funk can happen when you have stagnant water sitting there for too long. And we got to dump it. We got to move it to get rid of the funk. Scrape off those barnacles because the energy is no longer serving us. That's the energy that we're under. That's the energy to infuse into tomorrow's new moon, knowing that that's also kind of coming and brewing in the next few days as well. So the new moon will be at 28 degrees, 25 minutes of Taurus. And then the sun will shift into Gemini, like I said, on Sunday, and we'll have a new season upon us. And Gemini energy is lighter, more inquisitive. It's air rather than earth. So use that. Think about new ideas, craft new ways, get creative, get curious, fall back in love with your inner child and the childlike wonder of this world and just the pleasure, because we're still have a lot of Taurus energy too. So it's 11:11 a.m. and that is my Astro Weather Check for today, for tomorrow, and kind of the week beyond. And next time I record will be kind of on the eve of the Sagittarius full moon in early June, and I'll start talking about the Venus retrograde that's coming and all of that. So if what I've said about everything so far resonates, drop a comment. I'd love to hear if your experience was similar, especially in the synchronicity with the full moon that happened with the eclipse. And we'll be out of eclipse season, which will be nice. And I'll tell you what, the dragons really showed up this time around. Sometimes I feel it and see it more than others. But this time I feel like they were really there helping us with the clearing and the release of a lot that's been brewing over the last year and a half. And we'll have a new energy coming soon in the middle of the summer with the nodes changing. So chin up. If it's been difficult, it'll get better, but you gotta act. It's that energy. It's that square. The squares are a pain in the ass. But like I said, they're there to help us. And all the planets shifting around the same time is really interesting too. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so let's get into our Chiron material for today. We're going to talk about the 11th house. The 11th house of the chart is the space where it's where we call in our tribe. So it relates to friends, but it's more like groups of friends, groups of people. And it's also the space that relates to our future. It's kind of flavored with this Uranian energy. And how can you contribute your individual gifts to the greater good and to the world and to larger groups of people? That's the energy that we're working with in the 11th house. I've talked about my 11th house in a couple episodes prior. And being a Taurus rising, my 11th is Pisces. So it's really very much about spiritual tribe. And it's very dynamic. For me, it always has been. And it changes and shifts a lot. So those experiences, like I said, relate very much to kind of the 7th house, but on a broader scale with friends and groups of friends and that kind of thing. And with Chiron there's an incredible healing journey and opportunity to show up as yourself not care what people think, and contribute your special individual gift to the world. So let's get into what Barbara says. If you're new, I'm reading from and teaching from Chiron, the Rainbow Bridge Between the Inner and Outer Planets by Barbara Hand-Clough. And we've been going through her information and also my experiences and perceptions of the houses. So the themes of the houses in the chart, but also having Chiron in the chart. And I'm teaching from Barbara's book on that. And then I read from the Black Moon Astrology card Oracle deck and just pretty much the guidebook description of the card. So we'll read from the 11th house card for today's show. So what Barbara says about the 11th house. The presence of Chiron in the 11th house signals a crisis over the possibility of playing a unique role in culture. The 11th house is the place of opportunity for each one of us to give our creative gift during our lifetime. So, what if one is an impressionistic painter and arrives in New York City in 1965, ready to sell his or her paintings when the only acceptable genre is abstract expressionism? We live during an age when media-influenced fame is the key to personal value. What if one simply loves being a gardener when menial work is reviled? Each one of us needs to give our creative gift, and Chiron in the 11th is a sign of serious crisis over creativity and idealism. We need to give our gift and have it be graciously received. Since the polarity is from the 5th to the 11th house, the power, she talks about Uranus here. This is awesome. The power of Uranus is not released. The individual has no vehicle of self-expression and is tragically isolated from the will axis. Knowing one's natal chart is the opportunity to open blocking energies and bring through the gift of self, the sun itself. We must recreate the love of individual uniqueness and learn again to appreciate the gift of each person. The 11th house needs to be carefully examined for each person to try and determine what the natal gift might be. Then a way to give it must be found. The highest level of awareness is the realization that the energy really flows when you just channel it. The key to resolution of Chiron in the 11th is to counsel detachment and letting go. Often people are much farther along on manifesting their gift than they realize, and their overinflated ego is keeping them from seeing how great they already are. The Hermetic principle, as above, so below, teaches that each action here on earth has a purpose and is power itself. Wow. So I skimmed over a lot of that section just because, as usual, she does go into very specific examples and client work and people and charts that she has in this book. So if you want to go deeper with that and see the whole section, definitely, I highly recommend this book. It's incredible. So that's interesting. And I do want to kind of reiterate that when we get into the upper hemisphere of the chart, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, we are in the space where we're contributing and bringing things out into the outer world, and 1 through 6 is our inner world and work we came here to do on a personal level. So yes, the opposite house from 11 is 5, and we talked about 5 already, and that's our creativity. It's our connection to our muse. It's children, which can be actual children, but also gifts and creative creations that we birth into the world. And it's the house of pleasure. So the dynamic between the two that she touches on is important to keep in mind when we're talking about the space of the chart that's opposite the lower hemisphere. So if that resonates for you, if you have Chiron in the 11th, I'd love to hear about it. If you're willing to share, it can be anonymous, or if you want me to if you send me something in that you want me to actually share, I will. Just let me know. Reach out, ursaalchemy@gmail.com. So let's move into the Black Moon astrology cards. And I always make sure I say this every time. This is an oracle deck. In the guidebook, it will talk about pulling this card with other cards. So I don't want to have any confusion there. Like that's how this deck works. And we're just doing single cards right now because we're talking about the specific houses. Also, it'll go into what I like to kind of work with the chart as it is, but other people will work with it as overlapping themes between having a natural chart and then those themes kind of underlying your actual chart. So they talk about that in this book as well. So I'll just always kind of say in a natural chart, which is an Aries rising chart. So just not to get any confusion with the descriptions in the guidebook. So the 11th house, the message on the card is friends. It's card number 35. And these cards are just so beautiful. There's like this there's like statuesque people on it, and it's just got like this overlay of the cosmos and stars and that kind of thing. So really beautiful card. And the description from the book: don't walk behind me. I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me. I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend. And that's an anonymous quote. The three graces of hope, faith, and charity, the bonds of friendship. Rely upon support from friends and other associations. Don't attempt to go it alone. You will need help. The 11th house is all about associations and how we connect to others. It is the house of group alliances, ideals, and our aspirations in a public or social arena. The 11th house is commonly referred to as the house of friends, but it is so much more than that. It has everything to do with the collective that comes from groups, people who identify and align with each other to make social change. By combining our energies with others, we can make our world, but more importantly, the domain of others, a better place. The 11th house has to do with our destiny, what we decide to give before we leave this earth, our soul's purpose. The 11th house deals with the greater good and living up to an ideal. The 11th house card says that we are not in this world alone, and that it is time to aim higher and go among the broader society to work with others or share energies. And it's not a good time to work on your own. The support of allies and other groups are necessary. The 11th house points out how we are distinct. It is a reminder that we are unique among groups and friends. When this card turns up in a reading, the focus is on friends, what groups you belong to, and who you associate with. To achieve your objectives, pooling your resources with those of others may be necessary. There will be changes in your friendships and associations, or possibly you may be able to achieve an important goal or desire based upon who you know. It represents a collective creativity. A friend may have the very information you need to further advance your cause and goal. Or it could be through the friendship of lovers or spouses that will allow you to attain your dream. This means you are to hook up with the right people at the correct time. Now it is all about the people you know and what organizations you associate with. Even though it's a fortuitous time to join a class, a club, a society, or a group, it is also important you be a standout. Others will support your individuality. Sometimes this card indicates the sudden appearance or disappearance of an old friend. The 11th house is also the house of stepchildren or children who belong to your lover. Issues involving such children may arise. Look to surrounding cards for the meaning of the issue. The appearance of the 11th house card means the collective. Those who support you as friends, but can sometimes indicate open enemies and rivals. It could just be a spirited competition between you and another, bringing out the best in both of you. But in the end, what works out is what works out best for all. So it is not a good time to serve your needs only. It is time to be a comrade and give consideration to friends. 11th house card in brief: friendship, friends of all kinds, allies and alliances, social contacts, organizations and clubs, gatherings, dreams, hopes, and aspirations, destiny, compassionate acceptance, the place where we discover we are not alone, being different, individual, one of a kind, foreigners, other cultures, and people with a different ethnicity or background. Tribal connections, suffering from rejection or banishment from the tribe, traveling to foreign lands, entering a new field, misfits, artists, stepchildren, children who are also our friends, technology, connecting through electronics, going with the flow, trusting in the flow as well as in your own wild and unique self. Corresponding tarot card is the Three of Cups, and key ideas, sources of help, alliances, groups, friends, the black sheep of the family, goals, hopes, wishes, dreams. That's optimistic, but also challenging. There's a lot of dynamic energy there. So that is the 11th house, Chiron in the 11th house. If it speaks to you, I'd love to hear from you. I have no natal planets in the 11th, but boy, as things have gone through, woo! So it's all divine. And speaking of groups and working as a team and alliances, I want to get into a few things that we have coming up with Sea Goddess. My intention all along with all of this has been, I just never wanted to do this alone. So finding this team and my place in it, and it's been a very interesting and like wild ride, but so beautiful. And we have an incredible team, and I love each and every one of these women so much. And a special shout out to one of them. Today is her birthday. So happiest of returns to you. And tonight we will be doing our weekly Thursday night live readings. So that is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we're on for roughly an hour. And it's usually some of us, I believe tonight will be all four of us again. So me and Mandy and Lexi and Jessie. And it's a good time to just kind of get a feel for us, sample our services. We all have our decks of choice, and we just do readings for people and talk about the current energies. So that is live streaming on our YouTube and our Facebook page at 7:30 p.m. tonight, Eastern time. So join us if you can. It's lots of fun. I love doing it. And it's just always so interesting to see the synchronicities that happen between the people that are on and asking for readings as well. There's usually many overlapping themes. And you can tune into all of the episodes that we've already done on our YouTube channel. There's a Thursday Night Live playlist up there. So that's fun, and that'll be tonight, and I'm really excited for it. So we have that coming tonight. And then on Saturday, we will be vending at the Crops Spring Market at Linwood Central Square from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So if you're local in the South Jersey area and want to come say hi, we'll have our physical products that we have at our pop-up vending events, just like the farmers markets and stuff. So we have crystals and custom art and just as beautiful orgone pieces, pyramids and pendants, and beautiful, beautiful, sparkly. I always say that they're functional as well as practical and beautiful. So orgone is really cool. It protects against Wi-Fi radiation. They're all custom crafted resin pieces that have crystals and metal and beautiful combinations of colors and everything, wearables, or whether you want to have like a pyramid on your desk like I do. And they're just energetic protection, and they pull in the chi and the prana energy. So beautiful pieces, and we'll have those. And our aromatherapy line, which is growing. Mandy makes these beautiful bath salts with Himalayan salt and Epsom salt, lavender and eucalyptus oils and flowers. So we'll have those, and we'll have my smokeless smudge energy cleansing sprays and roll-on perfumes and beard oil, and our newly released natural deodorant. We call it Goddess Strength and Neptune Strength. So we have a men's and a women's display product, but they're both the same formula. So we'll have that, and information about our upcoming events. And what else do we sell? We have such t-shirts. Lexi makes these beautiful tie-dye shirts, and I believe we have 2 of those left, so we'll have those. And yeah, it's just fun to get out in the community and see people. And we have beautiful new crystal jewelry crafted by our Sue, and we'll have those. She makes beautiful chakra crystal bracelets, as well as charm bracelets and earrings, and we might have some necklaces from her too. So those are also gorgeous pieces that we'll have, and they're all custom, they're all handmade. And we have men's and women's for those as well. So come see us if you're in the South Jersey area. And it's a beautiful market. There's always an education station, yoga, and a fitness class as well, and a band. Either it's a solo person or an actual band. And it's just a beautiful morning. So come out and see us on Saturday at the Crops Spring Market at Linwood Central Square, if you can. And then on Tuesday, Mandy and I are teaching a make your own pendulum and introduction to dowsing workshop on Tuesday night at 6:30 in Northfield, New Jersey at HG Workshops. So if you can come out for that, that's going to be a lot of fun. HG Workshops is an awesome space. Laura's tagline for the whole thing is craft your vision. And that's in Northfield on Tilton Road. It's kind of hidden from the street. It's behind the DK Nails. It used to be the Surf Speedy if you're in the area. And it's like back where the radio stations are. So that is on Tuesday. Join us if you're able. We still have some spaces open for that. And that's on our website. You can register there. It's right on our homepage, and there's a link that'll bring you over to HG Workshops, and then you can sign up on their website. So we have that. And then on Thursday next week, we have our first Surf and Soul Drum Circle at the beach. We're very excited for that. We're kicking off our summer season. So that'll be on Thursday at 5:30 at Caspian Avenue Beach. So it's Caspian in Maine. And we're actually not on the beach. We're on the little section by the bulkhead, kind of like where the bathrooms are. And that's been really fun. We moved the location last year, and it's been great. There's lots of parking, there's lighting. We won't have to worry about that this time, but that'll be 5:30 to 7 on next Thursday night, so the 25th in Atlantic City. And we'll have one a month at that location until September or October on Thursdays. And we have that whole schedule on our website as well, on our events page. And there's a map there too, so you can find the location. So that's in the inlet, Caspian in Maine, Caspian Avenue Beach, and that'll be lots of fun. We're excited for it. So that's all of our upcoming events for now. We have a lot coming up in June as well. You can find everything on our website, on our classes and our events pages. We have a very special event planned for Atlantic City's North the Shore weekend on June 10th. Light and sound healing experience. So we'll be doing another sound bath in the lighthouse. That's going to be really cool. We're excited to bring that back as well. We did one last year during the spring festival, but this event is a lot smaller. It's 2 hours. We'll be doing a workshop and gallery reading first, and then we'll be doing the sound bath. So we're excited to bring a healing experience element to the North the Shore weekend. So everything's on our website, homepage, classes page, which might transition to be called Learn soon. I'm making some updates to the website. So home, learn, or classes, and then also events, you'll find all of that there. All the registration links, everything's right there. So I wanted to close out today by pulling a card for us. And since we're talking about digging deep and finding what our contribution is and in this reflection phase of everything that's happened, and pulling in really that Jupiterian energy, I picked Work Your Light from Rebecca Campbell. And let's see what comes up for all of us as we close out today. The Ever Unfolding Rose. I love this card. And Rose is the signature oil for the sign of Taurus. So we still have a few days to kind of enjoy that element as well. And the message on the card is cracked open. It's happening for you, not to you. This is a beautiful, beautiful card. So let's see what Rebecca has to say in the guidebook on this one. The ever unfolding rose. I'm looking for it. Oh, here we go. It's like the first one. So she has these cards divided into suits. And the ever unfolding rose is one of the confirmation cards. So let's see what the description says. Cracked open. It's happening for you, not to you. The challenge of life is to keep your heart open when you most want to close it. To let life crack you open. To open through hurt and loss. To allow what is falling away to fall away. Being human is a courageous act. A life well lived is full of losses and tragedies, as much as triumphs and adventures. Wherever you find yourself at the moment, life is coaxing you to keep your heart open, no matter how much it hurts. To continually unfold, to let life crack you open. Perhaps you are going through a difficult time right now. Instead of cursing the difficulty, see it as a blessing. To open yourself up to the truth that perhaps, as hard as it may be, life is happening for you, not to you. And one day, in the not too distant future, you may just bless the thing that broke you down and cracked you open because the world needs you open. And now is the time to go gently, to treat yourself like a tender, sweet baby, to wrap yourself in a blanket and trust that the mother has you cradled in her arms. The seas may not all be smooth sailing, but you are safe and you are held. One day, not too far from today, you will look back at the transformation and be blown away by the poetry of life. Everything is going to be okay. And then the work your light summary. Everything is going to be okay. Let it crack you open. Oh, so I feel like that is a mic drop moment, and I will leave it there. That is a beautiful summary to everything that we just talked about, especially in the beginning. So I will leave it there for today, and thank you for joining me. And I'm available for natal chart readings, astrological aromatherapy, many other services. You can find everything on my page on Sea Goddess. So seagoddesshealingarts.com/Ursa Alchemy. And if you feel called to email me, that would be awesome too. If you want to share anything that resonated during this episode, ursaalchemy@gmail.com. And I started offering this perk because it's helpful for me. So the energetic exchange is there. If you're listening on a platform where you can leave stars or a review and you feel called to do that and want to support me there, take a screenshot of your stars and review, send that to me at my email address, ursaalchemy@gmail.com, and I will gift you my Lunar Alchemy class that I just did, and that's available on our website for download. And I go all into moon phases in the natal chart, what they mean, and then teaching about how to work with the lunar cycles in a really different and cool way by creating your intentions focused on the themes of the house that the new moon is happening in. That's the way that I work with them, and I share some personal stories about how that's all materialized, and I'm blown away. So that's all for today's episode. I'll be back with you ahead of the full moon in early June, and love you all. Thank you for being here with me, and remember to be a maverick. Bye.